Studio, we're pleased to welcome now Ashley Edwards, coastal Mississippi entrepreneur, former president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council, also a SuperTalk Mississippi News contributor. Ashley, it feels like a whirlwind, man. I can't keep up with all of it. Doing our dead level best, our Rhino and I, so that we can inform our audience, but it's coming at us faster than we can consume it and digest and analyze. What do you think?
What an incredible month we've had. I think the last time you and I talked, Gerard, was the day after the sort of infamous presidential debate in Atlanta. And, you know, it seems like the world's changed 100 times since then. What a month. We've had a decade in a month, it seems like.
Man, you know, normally we're kind of scratching our heads for stuff to talk about and guests to have on the program. It's usually kind of a quiet time of year because we're in between the legislative sessions, and we really do emphasize our coverage of that when the legislature is meeting. But this is an unusual year in that we can't get to all of it. And there's so many good people, such as yourself, that we want to have on the program to provide their thoughts and an analysis. Let's turn our attention to just last night. President Biden's arguably his last primetime speech of his career aired last night. What did you think?
You know, I think it was okay. I think that's the best I can say about it. It's striking to me just how much he has continued to slip. And, you know, obviously this is something people were talking about a year ago, 2 years ago, but I can really see a change throughout 2024. His delivery is not strong. And, his voice was very weak during that speech. I mean, he was very quiet, kind of very humble. You know, look, on a content standpoint, I think it was fine, Gerard. I don't know that it moves the needle a whole lot, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's pretty clear he had lost the support of his party. And so what you saw last night was a man who had lost his party and was in a position that, you know, he didn't want to be in, and that, you know, we know he had pushed back really hard against over the course of the last month, and finally saw the writing on the wall, apparently, and had to make the exit from the race. But, I wouldn't tell you that it's something I didn't expect to happen. I think that generally in life, when things get to a point of non-sustainability, you're going to have a tipping point. It was clear it was getting to that point with President Biden. He and I think a lot of his senior staff, probably some family members, were in denial about that. But it was just very clear that there was just not a sustainable path there. And so I think the inevitable happened.
The thing that disappointed me about it, Ashley, is that I think all eyes and ears were tuned in, waiting to hear an explanation. We didn't get that, really.
No.
We didn't get it.
You know, reading between the lines, what you get from him is this: hey, it's time to pass the torch. You got a lot of discussion about the things he thinks he should be getting credit for that maybe he doesn't believe he's getting enough credit for. You know, look, Gerard, one of the things I was telling my wife last night after the speech was over with, it is very likely that you will see President Biden treated relatively well by history. Because he did step away. And so, you know, in some respects, what you're going to see, I think, over the next 4 months leading up to the election is not a lot of time being spent talking about Joe Biden, not a lot of time being spent criticizing Joe Biden. And so I think history will be kinder to him as a result of him stepping away. But there's no question he's out of the spotlight now, and obviously wasn't ready for that. But here it is.
Think about the roller coaster here, Ashley. We went from the media, of course, fawning all over him. I'm talking about in less than 30 days ago, he's sharp as a tack. And then post-debate, lots of hesitation, lots of concern, even his most stalwart, ardent supporters. Man, we got to do something. This isn't good. And now, in the wake of that speech last night, he's George Washington. I mean, right? He's an unselfish patriot of the highest order, the greatest in history. Just in 30 days, that's been the roller coaster.
Well, it is striking to watch, how kindly the media treated him last night when they've all been calling for his head for a month now. Even the media that's much farther left leaning, he just lost the entirety of the left in the United States. There's no question about it. Of course, by the time the speech was over with last night, he was being lauded as a great American patriot, and as you mentioned, as George Washington, which I think may play a little bit better with the American people, had it not been so clear that he was stubbornly pushing back so hard over the last month. I mean,
Yeah.
had the debate performance happened, and there been sort of an immediate about face that said, "Look, I've lost a step or two. I can see what everyone else saw. It's time for me to step away." You may have seen a lot more of that over the course of the last month, but he was very stubborn about giving up power, and so, I don't know how much credit you can get for stepping back and giving up power when you fought so hard to keep it. I think that's the difficult part.
Yeah. Well, we might get a bust in the White House there, Ashley, of Joe Biden with the iconic Ray-Ban teardrop sunglasses on his head. All right, let's talk about the election coming up. Is the path now more difficult for Mr. Trump, or did it get easier with Kamala Harris looking like to be the presumptive nominee?
I think there's a lot of Republicans out there that are going through some wishful thinking that it got easier. I don't believe that at all. And I'll tell you why, Gerard. I think that Kamala Harris, especially what you're seeing with some of the early poll results, and I'm not talking about just the composite national polls that have it, 45-45 or 46-44. I'm talking about digging deeper into the poll numbers. She's running a good 10 to 20 points ahead of Joe Biden with younger voters, with black voters. You see some improvement with Latino voters. It's likely that as a result of some of those trends, it could change the electoral map somewhat. Her being a presidential candidate from the West Coast could give her a bump in Arizona, for example, that could make it potentially easier to win that state. It certainly could benefit her in the state of Georgia, which is a swing state. Depending on her vice presidential pick, could put Pennsylvania, maybe even North Carolina in play if she were to pick Roy Cooper. And if you just get on one of the websites where you can sort of make your own electoral maps and look at the math, there's a pathway for her to win the presidency by winning Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona, and losing all of the states in the old sort of blue wall of the Rust Belt: Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. And so I just think from a mathematical standpoint, it maybe puts some more states in play, makes the potential for some of these swing states a little closer. And she probably has not quite peaked yet. But there's no question there's more energy behind her, more enthusiasm behind her, and really important groups for Democrats. And so I think it makes Trump's path a little more difficult. Now, I think he's still the favorite at this point, but I don't think it will be as easy of a victory as it would have been had Biden stayed in the race.
I've been playing around with it as well, and I'm kind of going out on a limb and assuming that Josh Shapiro becomes the running mate, which I think could likely deliver Pennsylvania to the Democrats, to Kamala. So I did that. I kept Georgia red, Arizona red, Michigan and Wisconsin red. Trump wins, 283, 255. But if you assume that they lose Michigan as a result, like I just did, but suppose they pick up Georgia. If they pick up Georgia, they win 271. So you could keep Arizona red, Michigan red, Wisconsin red, pick up Pennsylvania, pick up Georgia, and the Democrat wins. if Georgia stays red and they pick up Arizona because perhaps of California influence, as you indicated, well, then the Republicans win. I mean, it could literally be that close, maybe the closest electoral outcome we've had in forever, honestly, when you think about it. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Give us a lot to talk about. Good to talk to you, Ashley.
I mean, hey, the next several months are going to be really interesting.
Appreciate it, man. Good to see you. Thanks.
Thank you, Gerard. Have a good one.
Coming right back.